The story begins with news reports going wild over a massive storm forming in the Atlantic. As both a shark activist and researcher, Dale immediately feels uneasy. He is worried not only because the sharks he has been studying and caring for could be affected, but also because the storm is expected to hit a coastal town called Anaviel. 2 hours before the storm arrives, the story shifts to Dakota, Dale's teenage niece, who lives alone on the coast of Anaviel. Ever since her mother died, Dakota's life has felt empty and bleak. She no longer has any parents, and the only family who still checks on her is Dale, who works out of town. Things have gotten even worse because nonstop rain over the past 3 days has left her trapped at home with no food, no help, and no one by her side. Driven by hunger, Dakota is forced to go out and look for food while the rest of the town is in a panic, trying to evacuate. That is when an officer approaches her and warns her to head back home right away if she is not planning to leave with everyone else. The warning makes it even clearer that the situation is becoming truly dangerous. Elsewhere, the endless heavy rain feels more like entertainment to a teenager named Dee and her two brothers, Ron and Will. The three of them are still having fun, playing around in the middle of the storm as if the disaster heading their way is nothing serious. They are used to that kind of freedom, living under the roof of their foster father without much warmth or real care. But that carefree moment does not last long. Olson, their harsh and bad-tempered foster father, eventually finds them. Without wasting any words, he orders them to go home before the full force of the storm crashes into town. As time keeps moving, Anaviel is now less than 2 hours away from disaster. The story then turns to Lisa, a young pregnant woman who works at a pork processing plant. Very close to giving birth, Lisa plans to leave town before it's too late. At the same time, a truck driver is still stuck working, hauling pig slaughter waste out of the area. He is frustrated because while everyone else is trying to save themselves, he is still being forced to work in conditions that are getting more dangerous by the minute. Before leaving, Lisa makes a video call to her mother. She admits, with sadness and embarrassment, that she does not want to return home pregnant and alone, without the man responsible standing beside her. She still cannot believe that the man who got her pregnant simply disappeared and left her to face all of this by herself. Back in Dale City, he starts to realize something is wrong when he sees a dark mass of storm clouds moving rapidly toward Anaviel. His concern grows even stronger when he remembers that the waters around that town are home to dozens of bull sharks he has been studying. Not long after that, the bad news becomes real. The storm has already reached the part of the ocean where those sharks live. Without wasting a second, Dale contacts Dakota, who has chosen to stay behind in her late mother's house. In a serious tone, he gives her instructions on how to stay alive. Even though he is far away, Dale promises that he will come get her, no matter the risk. Time keeps ticking, and now there are only about 20 minutes left before the storm slams directly into the town. Things are about to get worse. This is Thrash. On the other side of town, Olson and his 3 foster children watch as people rush to leave Anaviel. But to Olson, it all seems like an overreaction. He treats the storm like it is nothing more than a normal weather event. Instead of evacuating, he decides to take Dee and her brothers to his wife's house. Once they arrive, Dee, Ron, and Will begin to feel uneasy. From what they have seen on the news, they know this storm is far more dangerous than it looks. But Olson and his wife act completely different. They seem calm, even slightly pleased, as if nothing is wrong, especially knowing they are still receiving government support for the children they are raising. When Dee says she is hungry, the woman quickly hides the fresh meat she just bought. Instead, she hands over a small piece of bread, making it clear how the children have been treated all along. At the same time, Dale is shaken by a news report about a tourist who was killed by a great white shark. What makes it worse is that the shark turns out to be one of the subjects from his own research. Meanwhile, Dakota sees the same report on television and realizes that her uncle is on his way to her. Elsewhere, Lisa fails to leave the town in time. The storm arrives faster than she expected. Her phone signal begins to disappear, cutting off her last connection to her mother. Now she is truly alone, facing a situation that is quickly getting worse. Not long after that, the power goes out in Dakota's area. Strong winds begin to howl, signaling that the storm has arrived. The only thing standing between the town and the sea are the levees holding back the rising water. But that hope collapses instantly. The levees break under the force of massive waves, and seawater surges straight into the city. In the middle of the chaos, the driver transporting pig waste struggles to find a way out as fallen trees block the roads. Panicking, he urges Lisa to push through the branches and find higher ground. As Lisa gets stuck between the tangled branches, the driver sees a massive wave rushing into the town. In desperation, he steps on the gas, hoping there is still a way to escape. But in an instant, that hope is crushed when the wave slams into his vehicle with overwhelming force. Back at her house, Dakota starts to feel a strange vibration beneath her feet. It is not like an earthquake, but something heavier, something rolling. When she looks closer, she realizes it is the storm surge from the sea, already dangerously close. Without hesitation, she runs, just as a powerful wave crashes into her home and destroys the front of it. In moments, the storm overwhelms the entire coastline of Anaviel. Seawater floods the streets, homes, and everything in its path. Yet even in the middle of this disaster, Olsen remains seated calmly, acting as if there is no real danger. Even as the water fills the yard and begins pouring into the house, he continues to underestimate the situation. Not far from there, Lisa is trapped near a tree, close to Dakota's house. Her car is wedged between heavy branches, leaving her no way out. She can only stay inside as the water continues to rise around her. In the distance, the driver who was with her is still being dragged away by the current, completely powerless against the raging flood. Meanwhile, the truck carrying pig waste begins to leak, and the contents are swept away by the floodwaters toward the sea. Unnoticed by anyone, the scent of blood and raw meat spreads through the water, drawing in the most dangerous predators in the area, a swarm of bull sharks. Back at Olsen's house, the situation finally starts to feel serious. The water keeps rising without stopping. Realizing the danger is getting worse, Olsen decides to take his family and leave using his car, which is still able to move through the flood. Out on the flooded streets, two fishermen become the first to use a boat in what is now a submerged town. With good intentions, they search for anyone who might need help, including Lisa, who is still trapped. One of them, Scott, quickly tries to rescue Lisa from the branches, holding her car in place. He signals to his friend Jimmy to grab some tools from the vehicle. But suddenly, Jimmy disappears without a trace, as if something has pulled him from below the water. Scott is left confused, trying to make sense of what just happened. At first, he thinks Jimmy might have fallen into a drain, but seconds later, Jimmy resurfaces and panic takes over. One of his hands is gone. That is when they realize something far more terrifying is lurking beneath the surface. A pack of bull sharks has entered the city. In a short amount of time, 3 residents become the first victims. The scent of blood and meat carried by the flood has turned the submerged streets into a hunting ground. At the same time, Dale and his team continue racing toward Anaviel by land. They are pushing as fast as they can to reach the town. But they have not yet realized one critical thing: the real danger has already arrived. Elsewhere, Dee and her brothers freeze in place when they see a bull shark swimming in the flooded yard of their home. And then more begin to appear. The group of sharks seems to be targeting Olsen and his wife as they head toward the garage. Without warning, one of the sharks lunges forward and attacks. Already injured and missing part of his arm, Olsen can only watch in horror as his wife is dragged away and devoured right in front of him. With what little strength he has left, he tries to make it to the car. But before he can reach it, another shark pulls him under the water. From inside the house, Dee, Ron, and Will can only watch in fear. In that moment, they realize their foster parents are gone. Elsewhere, Lisa's condition is getting worse. The seawater has risen up to her neck. Struggling to breathe, she explains to Dakota that she is heavily pregnant and cannot escape because her car is trapped between thick branches. Dakota hesitates. She knows sharks are already moving through the water outside, and she is not sure she has the courage to step out. But when Lisa says she only wants to live long enough to see her baby born, something inside Dakota shifts. As another woman, she cannot bring herself to leave Lisa alone in that situation. With growing determination, Dakota decides to take the risk. She heads down to the kitchen, searching for anything that can cut through the branches. After finding a knife, she carefully makes her way back upstairs, checking to make sure no sharks have made it inside. Avoiding the rising water as much as possible, Dakota moves quickly past the remains of a broken chicken coop. Step by step, she gets closer to the car where Lisa is trapped. Without wasting time, she breaks through the roof of the car using the kitchen knife and starts cutting away the branches. Every second feels tense, knowing a shark could appear at any moment. At last, Lisa is freed. Relieved, Lisa expresses her gratitude. She knows that in her condition, she would not have survived much longer if she had stayed trapped inside the car as the water kept rising. Meanwhile, Dale and his team are still fighting their way toward Anaviel through worsening weather. From satellite data, they notice a large movement in the ocean, heading straight toward the coast right near Dakota's location. The signal is coming from a massive great white shark, one of Dale's research subjects. With a tense expression, Dale realizes something even more surprising. The shark is Nellie, and she is pregnant. At the same time, Dee and her brothers are left to rely on themselves. Trapped inside a house surrounded by water, they try to survive while sharks patrol nearby. In panic, they rush to seal doors and block every opening to keep the sharks out. but their fear soon becomes reality. A bull shark forces its way into the house. As the water keeps rising, their space becomes smaller and more dangerous. In that critical moment, Ron reacts quickly, pulling Dee away just before she slips into the water, which could have led to instant death. Elsewhere, Dakota and Lisa continue holding on inside the house, now almost completely submerged. Exhausted, Lisa suggests making a signal so rescuers can find them. Dakota agrees and prepares to climb onto the roof. But at that moment, Lisa suddenly feels a strong contraction. Even while in pain, she insists that Dakota go to the roof and create a large SOS sign. She knows that without help, they will not last much longer. Meanwhile, back at Dee's house, Ron refuses to sit around and wait for things to get worse. The rising water is turning every window into a possible entry point for sharks. He comes up with a risky plan to go downstairs and find something that can distract them. If it works, they might have a chance to reach the garage and escape using Olsen's car. Back with Dakota, after managing to create a distress signal on the roof, all she can do is hope someone sees it. She heads back inside to stay with Lisa, whose contractions are now getting stronger. Lisa begins to realize that the moment has come. In a panic, she asks Dakota to check on her condition. Dakota has never dealt with anything like this before, and she hesitates at first. But in the end, she has no choice but to step up. Even without experience, Dakota can clearly tell that Lisa's about to give birth. The tension rises and the fear in the room becomes impossible to hide. On the other side, Dale finally decides to continue the journey by boat, since every land route is now completely cut off. The situation gets even worse when the power and satellite signals suddenly go down, leaving them without guidance. Still, Dale refuses to give up. With strong determination, he pushes forward, relying only on his instincts to reach Anaviel before it is too late. Back at Dee's house, the situation grows even more intense. While searching for anything useful, Dee finds a piece of beef in the kitchen. She quickly realizes it could be used to distract the sharks. Ron takes a huge risk. He prepares to dive into the flooded kitchen, not just to grab the meat, but also to look for something that can be used as a weapon. But just as they are about to move, someone unexpected suddenly appears. Olsen. He is still alive, even though one of his arms is gone. His sudden appearance shocks all of them and raises the tension even higher. At the same time, conditions at Dakota's place continue to worsen. The seawater is now almost level with the room where she and Lisa are holding on. Lisa keeps groaning in pain as her contractions become more frequent and more intense. With no rescue in sight, Dakota makes a bold decision. She has to leave the house and get the boat that Scott was using earlier. Time is running out, and the water keeps rising without stopping. Meanwhile, as Dale and his team get closer to Anaviel, they begin to see disturbing signs. The remains of livestock are scattered everywhere, some torn apart, clear evidence that the bull sharks have already reached the town. At the same time, Dakota begins putting her plan into action. Carefully, she tries to draw the sharks' attention away, creating just enough of an opening for her to leave the house without being attacked. Back at Dee's house, the tension finally turns into anger. Ron begins to see Olsen's true intentions. The man never really cared about them. He was only using them to collect money from the government. The truth comes out when Will finds proof of the financial support that was supposed to be used for their lives. All this time, they were given scraps, while Olsen and his wife kept everything for themselves. When Olsen tries to threaten Ron, claiming that even with one arm he is still strong enough to beat him, Ron finally snaps. A fight breaks out. This time, Ron does not stand alone. With the help of his siblings, they manage to overpower Olsen and push him into the water. Within seconds, the sharks circling nearby rush in and tear him apart, bringing his story to an end. Elsewhere, Dakota finally steps out of the house, moving slowly through the murky water filled with danger. Every step feels tense, knowing a shark could appear at any moment from below. At the same time, taking advantage of the chaos, Ron dives back into the flooded kitchen. He manages to grab the meat and also finds something that can be used as a weapon. But as he tries to return, his shirt gets caught, almost costing him precious time. In panic, he struggles to free himself, and at the last second, he manages to break loose and reach the surface, narrowly avoiding a shark that was already closing in. Back with Lisa, she is now completely alone. The rising water begins to lift the mattress beneath her, slowly carrying it away. All she can do is hold on, wait, and endure the growing pain. Meanwhile, Dakota moves carefully through the water, keeping herself as calm as possible to avoid attracting attention. Every movement is controlled, knowing that even the smallest mistake could be fatal. Unseen by anyone, a massive great white shark named Nellie, who is pregnant, has entered the area and is now moving among the bull sharks. Dakota keeps going, pushing through the dark water until she finally finds the boat she has been searching for. At the same time, the condition of the city continues to worsen. Seawater spreads further, swallowing entire areas, including the path Dale and his team are trying to cross. The remaining residents are urged to find higher ground, with no clear sign of when the storm will end. When the signal finally comes back, Dale and his team immediately track the shark movements. From the data, it is clear that the bull sharks have fully entered Anaviel. Not long after, they come across a police vehicle filled with weapons. Without hesitation, they take what they can to prepare for the growing danger. As morning begins to break, they reach the city and head straight toward Dakota's house, which is now on the verge of collapse. Meanwhile, Dakota, now armed with a spear gun, prepares to return to Lisa, who is on the edge of giving birth. With no medical help available, Lisa has no choice but to face it alone, holding on while trying to stay calm in the middle of the chaos. Elsewhere, Ron discovers something that could change everything. Along with the meat, he finds sticks of dynamite that Olsen once used for fishing. With renewed energy, he sees it as a real chance to fight back against the sharks. Back with Lisa, the pain has become unbearable. Just as the house finally collapses under the force of the current, she manages to dive out. But at that exact moment, her body can no longer hold on. She gives birth in the middle of the cold, dangerous water. With what little strength she has left, Lisa lifts her baby, trying to keep it above the surface. But the blood quickly spreads into the water, creating an even greater danger. It does not take long before a shark begins to approach, ready to attack. Panicked but determined, Lisa grabs a piece of wood nearby and uses it to protect her baby. She manages to fight off one attack, pushing the shark away. But the danger is far from over. Another bull shark appears, moving fast toward her. In that critical moment, a spear suddenly cuts through the water and strikes the shark just before it can attack. Dakota. She arrives at the last second and saves Lisa. Across the city, everyone is now fighting to survive in their own way. Ron and his siblings put their plan into action. Wrapping the dynamite with meat, they throw it into the water to attract the sharks. Then they create noise to draw them even closer. One by one, the sharks rush toward the bait. Meanwhile, the bull sharks continue targeting Lisa and her newborn without stopping. Just as Dakota is about to lift the baby onto the boat, everything is thrown into chaos. A shark slams into the boat with brutal force, flipping it over instantly. Dakota, Lisa, and the newborn fall back into the water. In a moment of pure desperation, the three of them struggle to stay afloat in water filled with blood and danger. The sharks begin to close in, ready to strike at any second. Then at the last possible moment, help arrives. Dale, who has just reached them, throws a stun device into the water, sending a shock through the area and forcing the sharks to back away. There is barely time to recover before another bull shark charges straight at Dakota and Lisa. But this time, something unexpected happens. From beneath the surface, Nellie, the massive, pregnant great white, emerges and attacks the bull shark. In one powerful move, she eliminates the threat, as if protecting Lisa and her baby. For a moment, it feels almost like a miracle, as if there is an unseen connection between two mothers fighting to keep their young alive. On the other side, Ron's plan finally pays off. The meat bombs they prepared explode at the perfect moment, taking out two bull sharks at once. For the first time, a sense of hope begins to rise in the middle of the chaos. Without wasting time, Ron and his siblings grab the car keys and rush toward the garage, trying to escape from a town that has turned into an open sea. Meanwhile, Dakota is finally reunited with Dale. Relief and emotion hit them both after everything they have been through. But no one feels it more than Lisa. In the middle of a disaster that nearly took her life, she manages to give birth safely. It feels almost impossible considering everything she endured. Overwhelmed with emotion, she quickly reaches out to her mother, letting her know that both she and the baby survived. Elsewhere, Dee and her brothers manage to start the car and make their way out of Anaviel, leaving behind the shattered remains of the town. Even so, Anaviel remains submerged under seawater after a storm said to happen only once in 100 years. What we have seen is only a small part of the stories of those who chose to stay behind. And just as things begin to calm down, the story closes with a warning. A new storm is already forming, and this time, the threat looks far more terrifying. So the moral of the story is if a giant storm, sharks, and suspicious free meat all show up at the same time, maybe just stay home and order instant noodles instead.